Peace and blessings, people. Happy Small Business Week. Happy National Small Business Week. My people, it is 1:07 Eastern Time, 10:07 a.m. Pacific, May 3rd, 2018. Let's get into it.
Root beer, Gatorade, water, iced tea, Abomination, that is sweet tea in my estimation, all of it for free. Now, if you've been to an amusement park anytime in the last 2 years, you know that typically in an amusement park setting, a soft drink is $175 for a shot glass, right? It's extraordinarily expensive. They give it away for free. Why? Because it exceeds customer expectations. And a little homework assignment for you, listeners. Go to TripAdvisor.com. You're probably familiar with that site, online ratings and reviews of travel tourism destinations. If you go to TripAdvisor.com, you will discover that the #1 rated amusement park in the United States is not Disneyland or Disney World or Universal Studios or Cedar Point. It is the family-owned Holiday Wilderness Lodge Safari in Santa Claus, Indiana. And if you look at any of their 5-star reviews, and there are nearly 2,000 5-star reviews, every single review mentions 2 things: free sunscreen and free soft drinks. They just consistently exceed expectations. Now, could you give away sunscreen in your business? Probably. Would that make sense in your business? Probably not. So the good news is that the easiest way to exceed customer expectations is to provide better service, because customer service is uniformly mediocre. And customers do not expect very good service because we've trained them to not expect it. So you can exceed service expectations quite easily. Interestingly, however, many business owners think that they are already doing so. In fact, research from Bain found that 80% of companies, 8 out of 10, say that they deliver superior customer service right now. Not pretty good, not okay, superior. Here's the challenge. 8% of their customers agree. So there appears to be a fundamental disagreement over what constitutes superior customer service and who is providing it today. The greatest companies in the world are setting expectation levels. It used to be that customers would say, well, that's pretty good customer service for financial services. That's pretty good customer service for manufacturing. That's pretty good financial service or customer service for financial services. They don't do that anymore. Right? The best companies in the world are training your customers what is realistic and reasonable. And so you have to continue to meet that test. In order to do so, every business has to get better at service, has to get faster at service, and has to get more human. Now, why does this make sense? Well, the data shows that just a 5% increase in customer retention can increase profits by 25% or more because of the compounding effect of customer retention. You have to spend less on advertising, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So just a 5% increase in customer retention can have massive impacts on your bottom line. I think that's worth it, and I hope you do as well. So to help you get there, I want to introduce to you in this session the Hug Your Haters model. Hug Your Haters is a system for improving your service, especially in today's modern age. And it has a few pieces. The first piece is that you have to embrace complaints. Fundamentally, you have to embrace complaints. And I wrote about this in the book, Hug Your Haters. One of the things I've learned in my 25 years since I sold domain names for free beer is that praise is massively overrated. I think praise is the most overrated thing in business and perhaps the most overrated thing in life, because every time somebody says to you, oh, you're so great at this, oh, you're great at that, it makes you feel tremendous. But you don't learn anything, because in almost every case, we already know what we're good at, don't we? What makes you a better business owner, what makes you a better manager, what makes you a better spouse or parent or friend or colleague is negative feedback and criticism. It's the petri dish, the raw material for improvement. My friend Aaron Pepper was, until recently, the head of guest services and marketing for a chain of bakeries and cafes called La Pain Quotidienne. And LPQ is based in Brussels, Belgium. They have 225 locations worldwide, many in the United States as well, Northeast. There's one in Indianapolis, not too far from me. There's some in Southern California as well. When she started there, her first day at work, she had a meeting of all the senior executives of the company and said, I want to tell you my plan. And I said, oh, Erin, yes, welcome aboard. Nice to have you here. Please do tell us your plan. She said, my plan is that we triple the number of complaints that we get. And everybody said, who hired Erin? This seems like a terrible idea. She said, no, hear me out. I got a system. We're a good business, right? Everybody said, yeah, we are good. We're disproportionately good. We're better than almost all our competition. She said, I agree, but we're not perfect. And the only way we're going to continue to meet the escalating expectations of our customers is to find the things that perhaps our customers are bothered by that we don't even know, the things that are invisible. So what she did was she built in a lot of nudges for feedback: website, social media, email, signage, trained the cashiers. And in every one of those circumstances, here at Le Pain Quotidien, we want to be the best chain of bakeries and cafes in the world. We want to know exactly how your experience was today, and we are listening however you want to communicate with us. You want to call us, great. You want to text us, great. You want to send us a tweet, that's fine. You want to skywrite, whatever you want to do, we are listening. Guess what happened? She got 3 times more complaints than ever before, just as predicted. However, she then analyzed those complaints and found some things that they were doing incorrectly they didn't even know about, fixed those things. Guess what happened next? All the complaints went away. See, what Erin understands that we all have to understand is that to get fewer complaints, we first must get more complaints. It's a 2-step process. And it is certainly emotionally difficult when people complain. In particular, if you are a small business, because when people complain about your small business, it feels like somebody is telling you that your baby is ugly. It's hard. But it's important to understand just how rare it is. Out of every 100 dissatisfied customers, only 5 will complain. 5 out of 100. Everybody else is just dissatisfied, never mentions it, and just never walks through your door again. So what this means is that your unhappy customers are quite literally your most important customers, because they are giving you information you need to improve your business. This is why I say that good companies embrace negativity and great companies seek it out. See, haters, the people who complain about your business, that's not your problem. Ignoring them is. Which brings us to the second piece of the Hug Your Haters model, which is answering every complaint. Not just the ones that we feel we should answer or the ones that are convenient, every complaint. We did a lot of custom research for the Hug Your Haters book. And one of the findings in our research study was that 1/3 of all customer complaints are never answered. And I would be willing to wager a significant sum that this has happened to every single person who can hear my voice right now. Every single one of you has complained to a business at some point in your life and heard nothing back. And that never makes you feel better about that business, does it? Because no response is a response. No response is a response that says, we care so little about your dissatisfaction that we refuse to even acknowledge your complaint. We decided to put some math around that for the book. So we did this massive research project and found that when you do not answer a complaint, it creates a 50% drop in customer advocacy. Conversely, when you answer a complaint, even if you cannot fix the problem, this is an important distinction, you just acknowledge the customer's dissatisfaction. You can't necessarily fix it. You just say, yes, we hear you, and we're sorry. It produces a 25% increase in advocacy. Now, I'm not suggesting that the customer is always right. Anybody who says that doesn't really understand business, in my estimation. I am suggesting that the customer should always be heard, because those increases and decreases in customer advocacy can drive your entire business success. It is absolutely, categorically, mathematically proven that answering every customer complaint builds your business. Third thing, we have to answer everywhere. See, for a really long time, for centuries actually, business had it pretty simple. If a customer had a complaint and you needed to respond to that customer, that took place in private, right? It was face-to-face, maybe over the telephone, maybe via postal letter, exchange of letters back in the day. Now, it's not so much that way. We found in the research that today, now your results may vary based on the type of business you are, but categorically across the whole US, on average, 60% of all complaints are off stage. And when I say off stage, I mean that those complaints take place in private using what we would consider to be traditional customer contact mechanisms, most typically telephone and email. 40% of complaints are on stage, meaning they're in public. So they might be in social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, etc., or ratings and review sites like TripAdvisor.com, Yelp, or whatever the ratings and review sites are that matter to your business, or even discussion boards and forums. And many industries have very, very popular discussion boards, kind of online hangouts, where customers and potential customers go to discuss businesses and brands. 60% in private, 40% in public. These numbers will continue to tilt toward on stage as more and more customers start to adopt new technology to interact with businesses. What this means is that increasingly, customer service is becoming a spectator sport. Every time you interact with a customer, it's not just an audience of that customer. It's an audience of that customer plus potentially dozens or hundreds or even thousands of other current or potential customers who are looking on to see how you handle that interaction. That magnifies the financial impact of customer service in ways that were unthinkable just a short time ago, which is why so many major companies are investing a lot more money in customer service than they ever have in the past. It's not that they're more altruistic. It's not that they care more about their customers today than they did 10 years ago. I wish that were the case, but it's not. It's that the spectator sport nature of customer service changes the financial ramifications of service inside the organization. And this genie is not going back in the bottle, okay? Think about young customers. I have two kids shown here. My daughter's 19, my son is 16. It was my son's birthday recently. Those are his birthday shoes. They have smartphones, as you might suspect, but there is no product in the history of products that is more inappropriately named than smartphone for them. Because of all the functions of that device, the one function that they have no interest in is the telephone function. My son won't talk on the phone at bayonet point. Now, they text hundreds of times a day. They use Snapchat, the way I eat bacon, lustily, greedily. But the phone is just not part of their agenda. And I could be wrong, but I don't think they're going to be in their first jobs here and making their own financial decisions relatively soon and sort of be looking over on their desk and say, oh, wow, what is this? I've really been missing out on the joys of telephonic communication. Let me embrace this technology now that I've never used or cared about my whole life. Over time, our customer interactions are going to fully or nearly fully shift from private to public, from traditional to new. So if you have a department or a role in your organization that is either officially or unofficially known as the quote unquote call center, you might have to rethink that because eventually you're not going to have as many calls. One of the brands that we work with on the consulting side of my business is Comcast, the cable television and internet services provider. And they have gone from 13 people handling customers in social media to more than 350 employees handling customers in social media in about 2 years. Because that's how more and more customers want to interact with business. And we all have to think about that, right? We have to think about how can we interact with our customers in the venues that our customers prefer instead of trying to force our customers to interact with us in the venues that we prefer. And sometimes that even means places like Yelp and TripAdvisor and ratings and review sites that sometimes make us feel uncomfortable. I think this guy really gets it. This is my favorite sign outside of a bar. Come on in and try the worst rum and coke that one guy on Yelp ever had in his life. I think that is truly spectacular. He really gets it. And a lot of business owners have an uneasy relationship with ratings and review sites. Sometimes they feel like they're not getting a square deal there. But the reality is that customers love these kind of sites. And I would argue that almost everybody likes them as consumers. It's just that when we think about it from a business perspective, we are less enthusiastic. The data show that 80%, slightly more than 80% of Americans trust online reviews in some form or fashion. And this is going to continue because we are faced with so many choices now. There's a principle called Hicks' Law. And Hicks' Law says that the more choices that a consumer is faced with, the longer it takes them to decide. You may be familiar with the book or the concept called The Paradox of Choice, written by Barry Schwartz. That book is based on Hicks' law. And it's this idea that, for example, if you go to the grocery store and you want to buy some cereal, and you go to the cereal aisle of a major grocery store, it's like a jaw-dropping experience, right? They have like 615 different kinds of cereal, and you're like, I don't even know where to start narrowing this down. It's paralyzing. It's paralyzing. And so we are faced with so many decisions now that we tend to use online reviews as a way to fight against Hicks' law and make purchasing decisions. So you may or may not feel like ratings and review sites treat your business fairly, but I can tell you that your customers will continue to seek out those types of venues and make purchasing decisions based on what they find there. So it is most definitely in your best interest to monitor what your customers are saying about you in sites like that, and to respond as often as possible. My friend Debbie runs a business called Fresh Brothers Pizza in Southern California, and Fresh Brothers has 15 locations now, maybe 14. Debbie's great at ratings and reviews. So because she's a restaurant, typically those would show up on TripAdvisor, Yelp, Zomato, a couple of the specific ratings and review sites for restaurants. So when she gets a negative review, she answers it and she says, "Hi, I'm Debbie. I'm the owner. Terribly sorry about the experience you had with us at Fresh Brothers. It's not how we typically treat our guests. You raised some good points, and we'll make sure to get those things addressed. Hey, if I sent you a $10 card, would you give us another try?" If somebody leaves a positive review, she answers back, "Hi, I'm Debbie. I'm the owner at Fresh Brothers. Thanks so much for taking the time to leave a positive review. It means a lot to us. Hey, listen, if I sent you a $10 gift card, would you bring somebody with you next time who's never been in before?" Pretty smart, right? Now, I asked Debbie, I said, "Hey, Debbie, this is genius. I love how you do it. It's how you're the owner. You take accountability. You sign it with your name. You know, you're asking people who are unhappy to come back. You're asking people who are happy to bring somebody else in. Great. Good plan. How many gift cards are you giving away?" She's like, I don't care. We have a database. We write it down. So it's not like somebody's making a bunch of fake reviews to scam us out of gift cards. She's like, that's not happening. And she said, for a $10 gift card, if that's going to bring somebody back in, that's really inexpensive marketing for us. And she said, more to the point, it's not so much that one person. It's the fact that dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens and hundreds of other people see that interaction on Yelp and TripAdvisor, and it brings those people back in. She says, we get comments about it all the time. People come in, they order a pizza, they say, "Man, I loved how Debbie handled that review on TripAdvisor." Because it creates conversation. Right? She understands, just as I said a moment ago, that increasingly service is a spectator sport. You're talking to everybody, not just the one customer at hand. As Debbie does, when you interact with customers, really anywhere, but in particular in public, in this new spectator sport scenario, it is critical that you answer with empathy. That you answer with empathy. And again, it's not always easy to do that, because sometimes we can get defensive when somebody attacks us, or we feel like we're being attacked. Maybe you feel like this customer's criticism was unwarranted, unfounded, inaccurate. But it is in our best interests to always use empathy. I like to employ the acronym BEAT, B-E-E-T, be empathetic every time, because you cannot control what has already happened. The customer is unhappy, or the customer's happy, whatever the circumstances may be, but that is water under the bridge. You do not have a time machine. You cannot go back and fix what has already occurred, but you have total control over what happens next. You have total control over what happens next, and whether that customer gets happier or less happy. I want to show you an example. My friend Chris is a graphic designer here in my town of Bloomington, Indiana. And maybe because he's a graphic designer, or maybe he's just a fool, I'm not certain, maybe both. Chris has all white carpet, his whole house, wall-to-wall white carpet. And you should never do that. It's just not a good idea. You're not Jay-Z. Like, why do you need white carpet everywhere? And in addition to having white carpet, Chris has a cat. This is not Chris's cat. This is a stock photo of a cat, but Chris does feed his cat Meow Mix brand cat food. Chris's cat does a thing. I wonder how many of you have cats. I have a cat myself. Well, you can't really say that. It doesn't work like that. I would describe it this way. I live in a house. Cat also lives. I think that's the best way to describe cohabitation with a feline. So Chris's cat and my cat, and those of you who have cats, everybody who has a cat knows this. Every once in a while, cat's just kind of walking around minding its own business. And it's like, oh, and cat just like throws up, hairball all over, and then just keeps on walking. Doesn't even acknowledge it, like nothing happened. It is a known feature of cats, like routine, on the clock, every once in a while, sort of vomiting. It's just what cats do. And yet we still revere them, which is amazing PR for cats. I'm not sure who's doing their publicity, but they're quite talented because we seem to really love them. So Chris has got the white carpet. His cat's doing the thing that cats always do, and it is staining his carpet. And so he decides to send a email to the Meow Mix brand company and say, hey, maybe we could change the color of the cat food so that it won't stain my carpet. And guess what he heard back? That's right, he heard nothing back. Now, he's double mad. He's mad about the carpet, and he's mad about the fact that they didn't reply to him. We talked about how important it is to respond to customers. So he decides to take it public. He was perfectly happy being off a stage initially, but now he's mad. Now he wants to make it on stage. So he goes to the Meow Mix Facebook page, where they have 415,000 fans, and he leaves this note in public. We're going to play the audio clip right here.
Hi, Chris. All Meow Mix products are made with nutritious quality ingredients that meet the standards and specifications of the U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA, Association of American Feed Control Officials, AAFCO, and the Food and Drug Administration, FDA. If you have further questions, our Consumer Affairs team will be able to help you. You can reach them at 1-877-MEOWMIX, 877-636-9649, or by visiting meowmix.com and clicking the Contact Us link at the bottom of the page.
So Chris is upset, obviously, and many of us who got that kind of a complaint from a customer would just delete it or move on with their day. But Meow Mix actually responded to Chris on Facebook. Now, again, this is in public, spectator sport, as many as 400,000 viewers. And here's what they said. We'll play this clip.
Dear Meow Mix, cats throw up pretty regularly. I figured you guys would realize this, being cat experts and all. With this in mind, why do you insist on putting dyes in your products that cause ruined carpets, furniture, etc.? When kitty spews are half digested and meow yuck all over the place. Seriously, my cat doesn't give a what your product looks like in a bowl, and neither do I. What would be helpful and appreciated by legions of cat owners, I'm guessing, is if you take the worthless dyes out of your product and save us all a lot of frustration and ruined fabrics.
Okay, so how many of you now feel better about the Meow Mix brand corporation? Probably nobody, because they made a classic mistake. They tried to information Chris to death. Every time you're interacting with a customer, public or private, always remember, your response needs to be emotion first and information second. They did it the exact opposite. They just tried to fact him to death, and it just right. It just doesn't have any emotional resonance. Like, everything they said was true, but it just doesn't work. But let me show you a different example in contrast. It's a business called Wink, and Wink makes a frozen dessert concoction. You might find it in your grocer's freezer case next to the Ben & Jerry's, the Haagen-Dazs, etc. But it's much different. It's gluten-free, it's sugar-free, dairy-free, soy-free, fat-free, nut-free, egg-free. It's really pleasure-free. I bought some for purposes of this presentation. It's essentially air in a cardboard container. There's not much to it. It's not for everybody. And that was made perfectly clear by one of their customers whose Facebook account name, now this doesn't even seem legal because I think you're supposed to use your real name in Facebook, but this gentleman gentleman's actual Facebook account name is Random Musings of a Barefoot Libertarian Hippie, which is probably a red flag. He was not happy with his purchase of Wink and went on the Wink Facebook page and left this message, again, in public. We'll play this clip.
I just bought this hoping to be able to enjoy some ice cream while on a low-carb diet. Too bad this ice cream, I put it in quotes because it tastes nothing like ice cream other than being cold, is absolutely disgusting. I got the cocoa dough version, and literally licking the freezer burnt ice shavings from inside the freezer would probably taste better than this. It's definitely going back to the store for a refund.
So that guy is not happy with Wink. And again, that one is so egregious that you wouldn't blame a brand like Wink for just deleting that one and saying, look, we're just not, no good is going to come with interacting with this person. But Wink understands the power of empathy. Wink understands that every customer interaction, especially a public customer interaction, is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to tell a story. They're not talking to that person. They're talking to everybody. They're just using the exchange with that person as the on-ramp for doing so. I'm going to play the next clip, and you can see how Wink handled this complaint. Go ahead and play it.
Hey, we're sorry to hear this, Random Musings. While Wink is definitely not ice cream, we do aim for an ice cream-like experience. The creator of Wink is a 25-year-old named Gabe who has celiac disease and dairy intolerance. We do recommend letting your pint sit out for a few minutes before you dig in. If the store you purchased Wink in gives you trouble with the refund, please let us know. While we hope that everyone will love and enjoy Wink as much as we do, we realize that not everyone will. If we can help, please send us an email to info@winkfrozendesserts.com. And thanks for giving Wink a try.
Now, how many of you feel better about the Wink brand? I would suspect most of you. They handled it perfectly. Empathetic, warm. Let me tell you a story about Gabe. He's got celiac disease. He's a kid. He started the business. Here's why. If you have any trouble returning your pint, let us know. We'll take care of it. It's the exact same situation. Meow Mix and Wink is the exact same situation. Unhappy customer. Except one brand tried to information the customer to death, and the other brand used empathy. It doesn't take any longer to do it the way Wink did. Perhaps last time they didn't have to look up any acronyms. I want to remind you that there is plenty of oxygen on the high road. Plenty of oxygen on the high road. And I think it's the road that we should take. Does it make you feel better? I hope that it does. But I'm not about feelings. I'm about business. And the reason I asked you to employ empathy is that I know it will build your business. It will make you a stronger business if you take this approach. However, you can't succeed with empathy alone. Empathy, of course, incredibly important, but you also need to make sure that when we interact with customers, we're doing so in the right way. It's common, very common, that when we are in a customer interaction scenario, we tend to use words and phrases that are seemingly innocuous, but can actually make our customers unhappy. And we tend to fall into this sort of customer service speak that can be really difficult. So one of the things I'd like to give you at no cost is this ebook I just produced called The 13 Words You Never Use, never replying to a customer. And that's true online, offline, anywhere that you interact with customers. It's a real simple guide, 4 or 5 pages, free PDF. If you send a text message to the number 66866, text the word haters to 66866. It'll bounce back and give this to you instantaneously. It will help you a lot. It's not actually included in the Hug Your Haters book because I wrote this after the book was produced, but I think you'll find it really, really useful. Lots of people have downloaded it now and they actually print it out or keep the PDF on their laptop. And so when they're interacting with customers in TripAdvisor or Facebook or email or even on the phone, they can refer to it instantaneously and make sure that they're not falling into some of these very easy to fall into language traps that can sometimes make customers even less happy. So please enjoy that. The next piece of the Hug Your Haters model is to answer expediently. We are in an era where time is interpreted as caring. We're also in an era where nobody says that they have too much or enough time. Everybody is always stressed for time. So customers want to interact with businesses faster and faster and faster and faster. In fact, research suggests that 40% of the customers who complain in social media expect a reply from businesses within 60 minutes, within an hour. Now, how many of you are prepared to do that routinely, to answer every customer within an hour? This number is just going to go up. More and more customers are going to have that expectation. The greatest companies in the world are doing it. They're going to expect everybody to do it as well. So we're going to have to find a way to get faster. Now, sometimes we fail in that quest. A couple of years ago, Amanda sent out a tweet that said, guys, I'm trapped in an Amtrak elevator at Baltimore's BWI airport. Help. Well, 205 days later, she got this reply. We're starting to hear that. Are you still in the elevator? I have three responses here. One, that's not fast enough. Two, if you ever wondered how a social media manager gets fired, that's a good example. And three, this was one character away from being the greatest tweet in the history of Twitter. If they just would have, like right there after the question mark, you see, there's some space there, right after the question mark, if they just would have put the tiny skeleton emoji, it would have just been a masterpiece, greatest tweet ever. So that's not fast enough, obviously. But the same way that Holiday World builds their business by being more generous than customers expect, free sunscreen, free soft drinks, you can actually build your business by being faster than customers expect. And a business that's done that is Discover. Now, some of you may know that Discover actually started the whole cash back idea decades ago. They sort of invented the premise of cash back, and then it has become much more commonplace in recent years. And so they didn't really have that same kind of differentiator that they always had. And so they decided to try and sort of differentiate themselves with speed. So they have really worked inside their organization to be disproportionately fast, to be faster than customers expect. And they put a lot of time and effort and software into that effort to really be quick to get to customers. So there's this gentleman whose name is Rob Especial, and Rob's also a graphic designer, ironically. Rob lives in Chicago. Rob goes on vacation. Rob does not check his email on vacation, which seems like a great work-life balance. Rob gets back from vacation, checks his email, gets not just one, not just two, but has 3 different emails from Discover saying, hey, would you like to take out a credit card application? Now, Rob thought that was a little much, a little aggressive, and so he went to Twitter to complain. And we'll play the audio clip that will tell you exactly what his complaint was. Let's play it.
Rob Special, we must be excited to have you apply. DM with your full name and full address if you would like the mailings to stop. Amy.
So that's not a super regressive complaint, right? It's more like a gripe, like, hey, persistence or lack of coordination. What's going on here? Now, because that isn't egregious, it's certainly less egregious than the complaints we heard a few minutes ago on Facebook. You can see how some brands might just ignore that and say, look, let's fight more aggressive battles. But Discover has really tried to lead with this responsiveness initiative. And so their policy is, per the Hug Your Haters formula, we should answer everybody every time. So they actually tweeted Rob back in 4 minutes, 4 minutes, which is pretty speedy to hear back from a major credit card company. Here's what they said. Let's play the next clip, please.
I haven't checked my email in a few days, and there are 3 offers for the Discover card: persistence or lack of coordination.
Nicely handled, right, Connie? Hey, we must be excited to have you apply. Send us your name and your email address, and et cetera. We'll take you off the list. Signed her with her name, Amy, so it's a little more human, a little more empathetic. Well handled. Well, this had a big impact on Rob. He's like, wow, that's pretty great. He tweeted them back 6 minutes later. Here's what he said. Play the next clip, please.
At Discover, kudos for the response time. Okay, I'll bite. Mostly because of your response, Amy. Hashtag great service.
Okay, I'll bite, mostly because of your great response, Amy. Hashtag great service. Hashtag great service. Now let's recap this for just a moment. Here's a person who went to Twitter specifically to complain about getting a credit card offer. 3 tweets, and 10 minutes later, same person takes out a credit card application. I think that is pretty remarkable. Now let me ask you a question. Is Rob Especial a customer of Discover today if they take 4 hours to respond to his tweet? I say no. I don't think so. I think speed is the only reason why he is a customer today, and that's a lesson for us all. When you are more responsive than customers expect, right, it creates that great customer experience. It is their version of free sunscreen. So it can really, really work. It's not just in social media, however. Speed is also the #1 criteria in telephone satisfaction. So when customers call businesses on the phone, response time and hold time and speed is their #1 criteria for what they care about. #1. In fact, there's a stat that says 85% of Americans say that they hate to wait on hold. Every time I see that stat, I think, well, sure, that makes sense. And then I also think, well, who are the other 15% who are like, yeah, I just love it, man. I'm super bored and I love smooth jazz. This is a great system for me. So speed is really important. And this is another amazing bit of data that says that on average, your results may vary, but on average, businesses take 44 hours to respond to a customer via email. That's too long. That's too long, because after 24 hours, you think, well, they're not going to get back to me. In fact, hey, remember I mentioned my friend Chris with the cat and the Meow Mix thing. And I told you, if you remember, that he sent them an email first and said, hey, the cat is staying on my carpet, do something about it. And he didn't hear anything back. So he went to Facebook and left that crazy note, and then they answered with all the acronyms. Well, guess what happened? A few hours after they responded in Facebook, he got an email back from them, an actually pretty decent response, much better than in Facebook. And so the only reason he went to Facebook to begin with, the only reason he took this issue public is because they were too slow in email. And this happens all the time. We're too slow in phone and email. So then people take something that could have been private and they make it public. And that's typically not good news for anybody. We've talked about embracing complaints. We've talked about answering every complaint. We've talked about answering them everywhere. We've talked about answering them with empathy, and we've talked about answering them expediently. But the magic ingredient for the Hug Your Haters model, the magic ingredient to set your business apart with service is awareness, is looking for opportunities to help customers instead of waiting for customers to complain and then trying to do the best you can with that. The more aware you can be, the more you have your antenna up, everybody in your organization, the much better off your organization will be. You have to see around corners and say, I think this could be a situation where somebody is going to have a problem. Let's try and head that off at the pass. That's the difference between good and great service. And I learned this lesson myself in a very powerful way. I grew up in Lake Havasu City, Arizona, a small town on the California-Arizona border, America's home of the London Bridge, actually. When I was just in 2nd grade, so many years ago, a friend moved to my town from Yonkers, New York. His name was Al Parente. He was an Italian kid from New York, and he was a really super obnoxious New York Yankees fan. despite that, we became best friends. We were best friends in elementary school, best friends in middle school, best friends in high school. Such good friends, in fact, that my pal Al Parente married my wife's sister. So my best friend became my brother-in-law, which I totally recommend. If you can find a way to make that happen, definitely do that thing. Unfortunately, when I was 30, Al was 30, we were all about 30 years old, Al was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer. And he had to have a series of increasingly invasive surgeries. And one of the byproducts of one of those surgeries was that Al lost the power of speech. He was still okay-ish, but he just couldn't talk. And he recovered from that surgery. And shortly thereafter, the Arizona Diamondbacks, our baseball team, we lived in Phoenix at the time, played the New York Yankees in the 2001 World Series. Now, that World Series was delayed by the 9/11 terrorist attacks, some of you may remember, and security for the game was very, very high. The last game, Game 7, was in Phoenix. They brought in all kinds of extra security, CIA, FBI, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, plainclothes. They welded shut all the manhole covers for a mile around the stadium. That's how concerned they were about security. Well, I worked downtown at the time, and I got 2 tickets to Game 7 of the World Series. My team, Diamondbacks, versus the New York Yankees. And I knew there's only one person in the whole world I would take to that game, my brother-in-law and best friend, Al Parente. Al and I go to the stadium, and on the way to the stadium, I, Jay Bear, lost the tickets. Not my finest hour. We went to the ticket office, and I pleaded my case, and I actually had season tickets, which helped. And so they had me in the database, and here's my ID, and et cetera, et cetera. And so they actually went in the back and were kind enough to print us out new tickets. And they just used like those old dot matrix printers we used to have, like, those kind of things. And they printed out this ticket. This is the actual ticket that they gave us. So they escort us into the building because of the security. They're like, okay, yeah, these guys, and we just printed the tickets, and they sort of walked us in. So we sit in our seats behind the first base dugout, I should say third base dugout, I apologize. And game starts, and Al says, pantomimes that he's going to go for a breath of fresh air. So he walks down the left field line there, and in the corner, there's a sort of outdoor patio, and I kind of watch him walk out that direction. Well, about 40 minutes goes by, and no Al. I'm thinking, where is he? Wait, this is Game 7 of the World Series. Why is he not here? I should go find him. So I walk out left field line to go find Al. I open the door to this outdoor patio, and there's Al up against a brick wall in handcuffs with a giant security guard barking at him. So I bust out and I say, hey, what's going on here? And the security guard says, are you with him? And I said, yeah, that's my brother-in-law. Boom, puts me in handcuffs. Turns out when Al tried to go back in the game, he gave security guard his ticket, shown here. Problem is, Al's ticket and my ticket looked like this instead of like this, which was the ticket that every other person in the stadium had. And when questioned about that discrepancy, Al refused to answer because he could not, which was very suspicious in the days after 9/11. The gentleman working the door was not regular Diamondbacks personnel. He was brought in special for the game because of the security. I think he was alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, doesn't matter. And he was just, look, I'm having none of this. This ticket doesn't match everybody else's ticket. I'm not letting you in, period. So I pled my case. Had no effect. So we stood there in handcuffs for an inning, and then a second inning, and a third, and a fourth, and a fifth. 5 innings we were there. Game 7 of the World Series taking place just over our shoulder inside the stadium. And then around the corner, after 2 hours of standing there, guy comes marching by. He's about 30 years old, medium build, medium height, kind of medium length blonde hair, wearing a nice Diamondbacks polo shirt. And he's, walking at a brisk clip, and he's headed into the game, and he looks over, and he sees us in handcuffs, and he stops. And he backtracks. And he says, what's going on here? And I explained the situation. He said, oh, well, I'm Chris Johansson. I'm the director of group sales for the team. I'm headed into the game to visit one of my groups in one of the skyboxes, but I'd like to see if I can take care of this. Wait right here. And I thought, well, that won't be a problem. So he takes off running around the stadium, goes all the way around to the other side, goes to the ticket office, finds the ticket manager, drags the ticket manager out of his office in the middle of game 7. They both run all the way back around the stadium to us. I'm like, here's the ticket manager. Ticket manager takes one look at our tickets, says, oh yeah, those are fine, because he printed them. They unhandcuff us. Don't say a word, by the way. No apology, no nothing. Unhandcuff us, and we walk into the game. And we thought, wow, did that just happen? And indeed, it did. We got back to our seats just in time for the Diamondbacks to win the game. Bottom of the 9th inning, broken bat, base hit off of Mariano Rivera, the great Yankees closer, one of the greatest comebacks in World Series history. Absolute pandemonium in the stadium. People going crazy. 49,999 jubilant Diamondbacks fans. One really unhappy Yankees fan, my brother-in-law, Al. Never forget that night. We'll never forget it. 23 days later, we lost Al for good. And that was and still is a difficult thing. And I was for a long time really mad about that game. You know, how dare they? And they ruined this memory for us, and handcuffs, and nobody ever apologized. And I was just mad about it. But then I realized when I was working on this book, Hug Your Haters, that it's not about what they did to us. It's about what he did for us. Because if it wasn't for Chris Johansson, we might still be in handcuffs. And we certainly wouldn't have been able to see the end of the game or take this picture, the last picture ever of Al and I. It wasn't Chris's job. Your business card probably doesn't say customer service on it. Chris's business card didn't either. Chris's card said director of group sales. But I can tell you for a fact, he was in service that day. More particularly, Chris was aware. He wasn't assigned to handle this. He saw something that was probably amiss, and he said, I'm going to do something about it. Friends, service is a mindset, not a job. And that's what the greatest service organizations understand. Everybody is in service. The Hug Your Haters model to embrace complaints, all of them, everywhere, with empathy, expediently, and most of all, like Chris, to be aware of opportunities to serve. Friends, just a 5% increase in customer retention can boost your profits by 25% or more. Now, the truth is, in business, your customers will try to steal everything good that you do. Just how it works. They'll try and copy your website. They'll try and mimic your pricing. They'll try and poach your best customers. They even try and get your best employees. It's just how business works sometimes. But I got to tell you, the one thing they can't take from you, the one thing that is yours and yours alone, the one thing that they will never pull out of your grasp is if you truly care more about your customers than your competition does. Service is your one and only theft-proof advantage. It's a pleasure being here. Thanks so much. I'm Jay Baer. There's the book. It's available in all the places and ways that books are available. Don't forget to text haters to 66866 to get the special 13 words you shouldn't use guide. And I think, Alexa, we've got time for a few questions.
Yes, Jay, we sure do. So we will go ahead and start the Q&A portion of this webinar, where I will be reading the chat questions our participants have sent in. And in this time remaining, we will address just as many as we can. Note that if we don't have time to get to your question, I encourage you to connect with a SCORE mentor after the webinar. Mentors are available today in the mentoring hall. So with that, let's go ahead and we'll jump into these questions. Jay, our first question comes to us from Christy. And Christy would like to know, if she hasn't responded to reviews in the past, should she go back and respond to those old ones?
Oh, good. Yeah, that's a good question. I get that a few times. So yes, absolutely. So here's what I recommend. Go to the places that you haven't recommended or you haven't participated in the past, like a Yelp or TripAdvisor or whatever the case may be in your business, and go through and answer about 6 months worth, right? So 6 to 12 months worth. So you don't have to, if you have 1,000 reviews, you don't need to answer all 1,000 of them. That's crazy. But whatever 6 to 12 months worth of reviews is in your business, that might be 10, it might be 50. And you reply and you say, whatever your actual response is, and don't forget the difference in empathy, and say, hey, thanks very much. You may not see this because you left us a while ago, but we have a new system here where we are responding to reviews. I hope you do see this. If so, we'd love to talk to you about it. You're going on record for everybody else seeing those reviews in the future, and you're showing them that, hey, now new sheriff in town, now we do listen, now we do respond. So yes, go back and answer 6 to 12 months worth, but just acknowledge that it's been a while since they initially complained.
Okay, next question comes to us from Joel. Joel would like to know what to do about trolls or customers that are really angry and negative online.
I mean, I think a couple of things. One, first, Joel, you don't know that somebody's a troll until they respond twice, right? Until they reply the second time. Somebody just has a one angry comment. You're not sure that they have malicious intent at that point. They could just be an upset customer. So we're quick to say anybody who's negative is a troll, and that's not necessarily true. It can be somebody who's really unhappy. Second, I believe you should answer everybody the same way that Wink did when I mentioned that a few minutes ago, because when you reply, it's not so much that you're responding to that unhappy customer, although you are. It's that you are using that as an opportunity to demonstrate your values to a bunch of other people that are watching from the sidelines. So I think it's the best practice is to answer everybody, even if they're really unhappy.
Okay, Jay, our next question comes from Barbara. And Barbara asks, what happens when a customer keeps making the same argumentative point over and over and over?
Yeah, I've seen that, Barbara. Here's my rule. I talk about it in the book. It's called Jay Baer's rule of reply only twice. The rule of reply only twice says that you never, ever, 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 ever respond to a customer more than twice online ever, under any circumstances, positive or negative, because it doesn't do any good. So let's just model this out. Let's say a customer says, oh, I hate you. And you respond, oh, I'm terribly sorry. How can we help? And say, you can't really help. I just hate you. You respond a second time, well, we must have really done something to set you off. We'd love to talk about this in a more comprehensive fashion. Could we set up a time to talk via phone or exchange emails? Customer comes back a third time. No, I don't want to call you. I don't want to email. I just hate you. At that point, you just walk away, right? You just take your hands off the keyboard because you have demonstrated that you care. You have shown all the spectators what you're made of. And this customer has shown that they don't actually want help, right? They just want to vent. And at that point, just let them. Right, so reply only twice. I tell you, it has saved myself and our clients lots and lots and lots of time and heartache. So that's the best rule. Reply only twice.
Okay, Jay, we have time for about 1 or 2 more questions here.
Okay.
This next question, it comes from Mary Ann, and Mary Ann says, I think everyone wants to respond faster, but how? How can we do that when we have so many other things to do?
Yeah, it is tricky because answering customers is not probably your primary job. It's probably something that you're doing in addition. So make sure to use software if you've got enough volume to necessitate that, and set up alerts to make sure that you get an email or a text message or some sort of push notification when somebody leaves a new review or mentions your business in social media or sends you an email. And I think some of it's operations too, Alexa, that you just want to make sure that somebody or somebodies in your organization are really thinking about this on a day-to-day basis. I talked about Debbie from Fresh Brothers Pizza, right? She owns the business, right? But she says, look, could I assign these things to store managers? Yes, but it's better if I pay attention because then I know everything that customers are saying. So just as part of her day-to-day existence as the owner, one of the things that she has chosen to spend her time on is customer interactions in social media, reviews, and email. So that's just part of her job. She just pencils time into it every day. She spends like 15 minutes jumping in there, just like you would go to a trainer or something else, or go for a jog. It's just part of your schedule. So if you treat it that way, as a scheduled sort of daily requirement, or maybe it's weekly in your circumstance, it doesn't matter as long as you do it consistently, that's much better than what I typically see, which is people trying to do it kind of ad hoc when they get around to it. And the reality is you're never going to get around to it. And then what have you accomplished?
All right, so those are all the questions that we have time for. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the SBA, SCORE, and Chase for Business, I'd like to thank you all for attending this webinar, and I'd like to give a very big thank you to Jay Baer for presenting today. Jay, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks so much.
Please enjoy the rest of the virtual conference and join us for the next webinar starting in 30 minutes.